Good afternoon. Welcome to Flint Talk Radio. I'm Sam Jahari for Community Parent. Community Parent was formed over the loss of my daughter, which at 17, she lost her life to heroin addiction. And from that, we formed this Community Parent, and we started the Chasing the Dragon program through the Genesee County Sheriff Department. And in a little over 3 years, we've been in front of over 45,000 kids at high school and junior high school. And I the whole thing is just getting addiction out and letting people, especially our children, know about addiction. So if they fall into that, they can reach out and get some help. There's over 25 million Americans that are in recovery. Then we have another 23 million or so that is struggling with addiction. What I find is 10% of us, we inherit these genes from our parents or from our grandparents or from our family ties, and through getting our tooth pulled or getting hurt or just messing around with alcohol or weed or whatever, it's like playing Russian roulette, and it it leads us down this path of addiction. And I find if that these happen in your family, more than likely you inherit these genes, and you should probably just stay away from this stuff as much as possible. Well, a lot of times, we get hurt or we get a tooth pulled, and we should get, we're going to be uncomfortable or in pain for like a week, and we're given opiates or pain pills, enough for a 30 or 60-day prescription, and by the time, if we just keep taking these pills, our body gets used to it. Not only does it get used to it, but if you don't take the medication, your body feels like you're in pain. So it's calling for that drug, and that's how addiction really starts, because you feel like, well, I need this because my body's in pain, and in the long run, it's just a drug. Your body's getting used to it, and that's what it's calling for. Anyways, the whole thing is a lot of times in our life, I know for myself, it's not that I was sleeping, but really I didn't want to get involved. I stayed quiet, just went along with the system and the ride, I guess, is a good way to say it. But through it all, when my sister came up missing, I seen all the failures of our system. Then my daughter come along, and I seen all the failures, and it was like, what the hell? You can't be quiet anymore. We we are naturalized citizens of the U.S. I was born, my family, we were born in Lebanon, but my dad was a naturalized citizen through his father, and that's how we came to the U.S. And what makes this country great is we're all foreigners. We all come from somewhere else, to come to a place of freedoms, and that's what makes this country great. We don't, why do people come here? For something better for their families. Because they're going away from the socialism. They're going away from the tyrants. They're going away from oppression. That's why they come to this place. And I find in our country, though it's still the best country in the world, we are losing our liberties little by little. And we're not paying attention to what's happening. You can't talk on a cell phone without somebody listening to you. And they say, well, if you don't have anything to hide, then what do you care? The whole thing is, this is our civil liberties, okay? We have the right for not to have anybody listening on our phone conversations. That is in our rights as Americans. The whole thing is now our borders are pretty much open, that anybody is coming across our borders, and then we aren't really checking them out or anything, and we're just letting them stay here. I am not I'm not against people coming over here to better their life, but I am against where they don't check them out. We don't know if they're murderers or if they're terrorists or what the hell's going on with them. We're just letting them come into our country, and we're saying, oh, okay, let's just let them stay. Which it ain't cool. It ain't cool. Here's another thing. Again, I'm Lebanese. I am from, we're considered Phoenicians, but we're put with the Arab mentality, I guess. Here we had ISIL or ISIS or whatever the hell you want to call these terrorists. These people, it's been about 3 years since they came out, and we thought, our president says, we're just going to maintain and keep an eye on them, and we're not going to get involved. But the whole thing is, if we would have got involved right from the get, I think they were only like 5,000 or 6,000 strong. We could have stepped on them like a bug. Now they're 60 to 80,000 strong. They got all this ammunition, all this money, and finally, we got a wake-up call after they beheaded a couple Americans. I'm from the old school. I loved Reagan in office, because he made us strong. I was in the I was in the military. I was stationed in Germany, and I remember when Russia was invaded by Afghanistan, and that night we heard about it on the news. Then 2 a.m. in the morning, all out alert. We went where we were stationed. We would go to like within the 5-kilometer zone, and our main objective was nobody comes over the border. And we held our ground for 30 days. We didn't know what was going on in the world, when Russia was invaded by Afghanistan.
I mean, when Russia invaded Afghanistan.
Russia invaded Afghanistan, yes. So, the whole thing is, President Carter, he just had us so weak, within the world, and I find that Mr. Obama is doing the same thing now. I didn't vote for Obama, but when he got in office, he says, I am your president, whether you voted for me or not. But I find that, this is a capitalist country, and he wants to turn it into a socialism. He wants everybody to be on food stamps and living off the government. He talks about how he wants to improve, the middle class, when he's taking the middle class away. And what I don't understand is all these people are just going right along with him for the ride, and we're sleeping, ladies and gentlemen. We are just sleeping. I think this president has set this country back, 30, 40 years. In the world, we look very weak. And, if you're going to have a war, I'm not going to send in no troops. You don't tailgate your punches. If that's what you're going to do, you don't say it. They know you're not in it for the long haul. We're counting on these other Arabic countries to use their troops and stuff, and I think that's a great call. This is their land. They should fight for it, and it should come from them, but don't tailgate your punches. Don't let them know, I'm not going to send no troops or whatever,
What I think is we should do in the Middle East is basically if we created our own energy resources, the Middle East would become irrelevant to us. We could just say to the Jews and to the Arabs, knock yourself out, butcher each other. I don't care who you do it. We don't need you.
Yeah.
I mean, people think we should have these lasting friendships with the country just because we're friends with them. You know, how can a nation really be friends with another nation anyway? That's like that. I mean, your friendship between individuals is so complex and dynamic. I wouldn't even want to hazard a guess how that really works. It does, but I mean, the friendship amongst nations, that's like that's such an abstraction. Basically, you deal with other countries because they have something you desire or want or need, and basically, if it wasn't for oil, the Middle East would be irrelevant to us, and they would have to actually come to agreement amongst themselves or annihilate each other. That's what, and the thing is, and the energy dependence, it keeps on being pushed back. But the Republicans did it more. They think like, well, you know, now the prices are dropped back in the 70s, you know, 80s. We can go on with our lives. They dropped the whole ball. So if we had kept that momentum going, the Middle East would have been a sandlot. They could have been fighting over for, you know, next three generations. What skin off of our ass would it be?
Yep.
You know, that's the reason why it means anything to us. Because let's face it, other people all over the world are butchering each other in much the same fashion they do there. But we're the only reason why we care about what's going on there because it might affect our oil supply.
Well, you know what? I think for the first time, we are energy independent. We're not really using outside oil and stuff. But the whole thing is, you know, we are afraid to dig for oil. We have so much oil and stuff here, but we don't want to dig for it because, you know, it might mess up you know, these fishies might become extinct, or these lizards, or these whatever, you know.
Well, that's one place where the government can actually have micromanagement. If they're so concerned about that, let the government have all the regulations they want. Allow them to drill, but have every guy, you know, have for every person working there, have 4 government inspectors sniffing up all these other people's butts. I mean, that's where we should probably be applying our instead of a military abroad, try to keep the pipelines flowing or whatever. Why don't we try to keep it micromanaging our own people? Because guess what? If the inspectors are here, they're spending the money here. If the oil workers are here, they're spending the money here. The money's being spent here, not abroad, not being put down a pipeline that we'll never see again. And it's basically diminishing returns doing what we've been doing.
Yeah, well, you know, that's another thing too. Now, all these big corporations, now they're taking their money outside the country, you know, so they don't have to pay the tax. Instead of just, you know, they're fining them and they're doing all these things that Obama came up with. Instead of just finding you know, something that's fair all the way around, why do we pay the most tax for corporate taxes here in this country? Well, if there's a problem, why don't we find a solution to it instead of just trying to find, you know, there's always more regulations, more fines, and this is our way of answering. It's a higher, we're paying more and more taxes, you know, the certain few. And it's not right. You know, let's go back for a minute. When Russia was invaded by Afghanistan, we needed somebody to fight Russia. So what happened is Osama bin Laden was there. And our government promised Osama bin Laden, you fight the Russians, you get Russia out of Afghanistan, and we will have you as a leader of Afghanistan. So when we didn't keep our word, bin Laden became a monster, but we created the monster. The same thing, we needed somebody to fight Iran. Now, Iran, we were friends with the Shah forever, but when he was in trouble, we turned our backs on him. Okay, so now much later, after Iran took our you know, held our hostages for 452 days or whatever, you know, now we're pissed off at Iran. We want somebody to fight them, so we go and we create Saddam Hussein, another tyrant. And it's the same thing there, you know. Come on, we need you, we need you, we need you. So he fought the war with Iran. Then after, you know, this guy became a tyrant. He became so huge, you know, that he became a tyrant, you know. But we create these monsters along the way. One day they're our friends, and the next day, you know, okay, we don't need you anymore.
We did that with Noriega. We can't. And we did that with Castro.
Exactly.
We've replaced Batista with Castro, and when he showed his true colors, we backed off on trusting him. And we always do this, and the cycles continue. I mean, we're going to do this in Syria. We're going to do this in other countries in the Middle East. whoever merges out of Egypt, we're gonna back them. Mubarak did bad things to political opponents.
Yep.
We didn't really widely publicize it, but he did.
Yep.
So we keep on doing that, and it's like, okay, our interests got to be served. I can understand that, but at what point does this counter our interest? I mean, we're always sending people to put out fires that we initially started. Someday it's going to totally get out of our hands. It's already at that point now.
Exactly.
And because we keep on thinking we're just so minutely influenced about the oil or whatever we can get from that. And like you said, you were saying about domestic oil production. If they would just increase that, allow the micromanagement of every drilling site by inspectors.
Exactly. We've come a long ways.
All that money could be spent in this country instead of military intrigues all over the damn globe. We have how many? We have military presence in 100 and some nations in the world. I mean, we only have 186 or some or 60, and we have over the 90% of 95% of them we got a military presence in. This is asinine.
Exactly.
And then
exactly.
we wonder we can't keep schools going. We can't look at our roads. Military excursions cost big bucks.
Yep.
Okay, nobody seems to keep that equation going in their head when they're looking at domestic spending and everything else. And that's what's. I mean, I'm not a welfare person. I don't believe in it. I don't think it's a good thing. I think it enslaves people. But everybody who was really needy here, if we had the resources freed up from the military excursions we're in, we could meet all those expectations, obligations.
Exactly. It was, welfare came out to give a hand out. But people, generation after generation, this is their survival, and there should be limits on it, and we should be training people to get out and work and not be on the welfare forever. That just, it makes people lazy, and as a country, we become lazy. That's another thing. Okay, we came here in 1969, where everybody kind of looked out for each other, and the world we live in today is a lot different than what it was back then. I find, we look up, whether it's sports players, we look at up to our priests or ministers, we look up to our teachers, our coaches, and a certain percentage of these people are corrupt, or they are not good people at all. Okay, I mean, every time you look up, you get a newspaper, or you just yesterday again there was something about a priest. I don't remember where it was, but again he was had molested one of the boys or whatever. Last year there was somebody that worked maintenance at the school that had sex with one of the girls, that 12-year-old girl or whatever. Same thing with you get the teachers having sex with their students. These are just a few things, but these are going on every day, and these are the people that we trust. About the coaches. The whole thing is, everybody as a whole don't want to get involved, and they understand that these things are going on, but I want to mind my own business. I don't want to get involved. We need everybody to come together, and that's the only way we can fight evil, because evil is on its last straw right here. They're making their last stands. The devil is all around us. Look, I'm not a preacher, and I don't try to, send you, my beliefs or whatever. That's for me only. I think everybody's relationship with God or whoever their holy person or whatever it is, that's between you and them. But the whole thing is, we need goodness to rise, to beat the evil. And that means we need everybody to get involved. That's the only way we can make this world a better place, is where everybody joins in and they look out for their fellow man, for their neighbors, for their community, for their families. It's such a wonderful, wonderful feeling when I go into these schools and I speak about addiction, and afterwards I get these hugs, and I get these kids that you know, you could see it through their tears that they're fighting. Either their parents are hooked on something, or you know, they're fighting their own demons. And one hand just can't clap by itself. We need everybody to get involved, and we can make a difference. I'm counting on that, that everybody comes together. You know, I don't care what our differences is. I don't care, you know, what religion you are, or who you vote for, or, you know, what your stands are. We're all about love in one another and making a better place, for each other, for our children, for our grandchildren. Um, that's all. That's all we have in the long run. Is, you know, and that's all we can take with us when we leave this world. You know, is what we left behind, and hopefully we can leave a better world behind than how what we found. I found since you know, I was a little kid. I mean, the world has just gotten a lot uglier than what I remember. Um, you know, it seems like you can live next door to your neighbor for years and not even know their name, because they don't want to get involved, and um, that's just not how I want to leave this world. Let's get back to you know, addiction, and addiction is not choice. It's again, 10% of us have these addiction genes, and it's called you know, brain disease. But the whole thing is, if we have cancer, if we have diabetes, or any other illness, we're not afraid to talk about it. But when we have addiction, we are afraid to talk about it because of the stigma, that you know, our judicial system has. Even out of 1 million doctors, there's less than 3,000 doctors that specialize in the addiction. With my daughter, you know, as she started to struggle with addiction, our family doctor didn't want to see her anymore because she was belligerent in his office. So he sends me a letter, you know, she can come to this office for 30 days, but she can no longer come to my office. My daughter was so messed up this one day, and we took her to they took her to in front of the magistrate, and the magistrate, before he sent her to jail or the detention center, he sent her to Hurley Hospital, and the emergency doctor, she's just yelling at Brianna, "You did this to yourself. You know, I got all these sick people." When Brianna is sick, and right in front of her, instead of giving her some compassion and treating her for her sickness, you know, she wants to yell at her. Not only do we want to educate our children, but we need to educate, you know, our judges, our attorneys. We need to educate these doctors, you know, about addiction. We need to change the stigma that follows it. If you, you know, the whole thing is, ever since the war on drugs started with the Nixon era, all we've done is just put stiffer and stiffer penalties where there's no treatment. We just keep sending more and more to jail, and we think that this is solving the problem, where 80% of the people we have in our prisons are, you know, mental health issues and drugs. Where a lot of times when somebody's an addict, you know, they have a mental issue also going on. You know, with Brianna, Brianna's mom was an addict, so she was always struggling, you know, why her mom loved the drug more than her. Why couldn't she just stay clean, you know? So she struggled with that. And then for her struggles, you know, they tell me, oh, she's ADD. She's ADHD. And finally, you know, after Brianna's mom died, they says, oh, you know, now she's a teenager and she's trying to cover up the pain that she's feeling, by drinking, taking, well, actually, they at that point they said that she is bipolar because she was trying to self-medicate with alcohol. So Brianna, within 2-3 months, again, she has 3-4 different medications, and just made her loopy. And she would, I remember this one time she didn't want to take her medicine, and I took her to emergency, and in return they sent her to see this psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist, I was telling him, well, Brianna doesn't want to take her medicine. She's been diagnosed with bipolar. She's I'm having problems with her. So as he talked to her, Brianna said to him, she says, you know what, Doc? I don't have bipolar. I'm a kid. I'm a teenager. And I'm just trying to deal with the pain I'm feeling. And the doctor, he looked at me afterwards and he says, I don't think she's bipolar. I don't know. The whole thing is we look to our professionals for help. We look to our professionals to give us some guidance when all along they don't really have a clue. It took me about 10 months to finally get in to see a judge. And not knocking this judge or whatever. At the time, I was very pissed off. But, as I was telling this judge, and my daughter is a good kid, she's just with the wrong crowd, and now she's doing drugs. And I don't, I told him, I said, I don't think she needs to go to jail. I think she needs to get some treatment. And, he looked at me and he says, Mr. Jahari, I think you just think your daughter's problems are everybody's problems, where you need to be home with your daughter. You should take a couple weeks off of work and be home with your daughter. I was dumbfounded. I didn't really know what to say to this judge. I thought he was a freaking asshole. And I expressed my anger in a quiet way where he didn't hear me. But I remember there was somebody next to me from either a probation officer or whatever, somebody else. And I heard them say, what an asshole. After Brianna died and I started seeing this other world of addiction, and I don't hold this judge, yes I do, I hold him responsible, to a certain extent, because this is all, these judges that are in this field or whatever, this is all they see all day long is, we think they're the low of the low because they're addicts and they will do anything for their addiction. Steal, lie, prostitute, even kill to get their drugs. So, but the whole thing is what I hold him responsible for. Here, I'm a parent and I'm crying for help. I'm there because I love my child. And within 2 seconds, you want to think, or you want to look at me like I am to blame for my daughter's addiction, instead of, getting me help, for seeing, within 2 minutes, you can't tell who this person is in front of you, and that's how I felt. He had me all pegged, I was just another loser, deadbeat dad in front of him, which is a crock of shit. They're still good people that mean good things. And I'm a strong person, and I truly, truly believe that don't always listen to the words of somebody, but see their actions, because their actions speak a lot louder than their words. And you can't tell a book by its cover. You have to read through the pages. And only with your help, with everybody getting involved, that we can change the stigma of, our judges, the attorneys, the doctors, even the healthcare professionals all the way across. I think sometimes they get in a rut and they forgot why they got into their job, whether it was to help people or what. They just get numb to it. That either they quit feeling or they just don't care anymore.
I doubt if anybody who goes in the legal system or anything else actually goes in there for helping people. I mean, our legal system, or you want to be a judge or a lawyer. I mean, I don't think that's what they're there for. I mean, quite frankly, I think they're like politicians. I mean, you notice that the move usually is for a lawyer to go into politics. So, I think there's always something there about power, and they want power and authority over other people. They have this like inadequacies in their own life that they're dealing with by projecting everybody else and treating that rather than dealing with what's in themselves. So I mean, that's what I think most of them are. I mean, I think they're sociopaths deep down. People in power are sociopaths. That's what I think. And I think that if you're trying to appeal to those type of people to make these changes so we can have a different outcome, it's probably going to be futile, because you're dealing with the wrong type of people. We got to bypass them. You got to and then you're talking about the war on drugs. That was a wrong-headed approach, obviously. But the reason why is we depend on people who are depending on everything on power. That's the reason why. You look at the genesis of this and how it's progressed, is because we put people in power over the situation where power is not the thing that's needed. What is empowering other people to see and address their issues, and they don't want to relinquish that. That's the reason why this current paradigm for treatment or for dealing with drug addiction, it's not even treatment; it's just punitive. Well, I'm not a touchy-feely person, but I think you got to step outside. I mean, depending on the system, that's been shown to be nothing but a failure to resurrect it, to reincarnate itself, to reinvent itself, is this stupid thinking. We got to have a total radical change in how we approach this.
Exactly.
And we got to take it out of their hands.
And the only way that we can make a change is by the people taking charge again, and this is what makes America great, because all these politicians and all these people, they're there for the people. But the people, I find, are quiet, don't want to get involved, or if it's happening in their family or whatever, they're embarrassed, or, this isn't happening in my home. That's what I find, like in the school systems, they're more worried about collecting the money for each student to come, it's all about the money. It's not really about the welfare or the learning of that child. I was at this one school district. We're not going to mention the names, but they were saying, they only have so many hours to educate. So we can't have you come into our school. That's going to take an hour, 2 hours out of their learning process. I thought to myself, I says, well, we send our kids to learn. Isn't this educational for them, so they can go past high school, or they can go past college, or they can live in the world, where if they fall into the addiction, they can get help and they can see what's happening and actually make a change. But everything is money driven, and it's not really about the welfare. I came across a few things I want to share with you. This one's about depression. It says, depression, anxiety, and panic attacks are not a sign of weakness. They are a sign of having tried to remain strong for so long. 1 in 3 of us go through depression, anxiety, or panic attacks at least once in our life. Wow. 1 out of 3. Okay? And again, like I said before, a lot of addiction is tied to depression. It's tied to bipolar. It's tied to a lot of the mental health issues. Here's something that Robin Williams wrote. It said, I used to think the worst thing in life was to end up all alone. It's not. The worst thing in life is to end up with people that make you feel all alone. I remember when I was in the Army, that was the first time I ever left home. And I was always surrounded, you know, by all my fellow comrades in base and stuff, but I would feel lonely, you know, because it was the first time that I had got out on my own. So I can relate to what that says. Um, you know, how are we going to break the stigma and stuff is by everybody coming to life and getting united, and you know, these like community parent groups, they're forming in every community, because you see, addiction, it's not prejudiced to where you live. It's not prejudiced to the color of your skin. It doesn't care. Okay. There's another article I came across that 90% of white people are the heroin addicts. Okay. And this is in suburban America. That means all over America. Okay. Now, is this happening in the inner city? Oh yeah, it's happening in the inner city. And a lot of times the drugs are coming through the inner city to get to the suburbans. Okay. So this touches everybody, not just, I mean, everybody. You know, I got neighbors on both ends that are alcoholics. You know, they're recovering alcoholics. So this is everywhere. It doesn't matter where you live, and don't tell me that it's not happening. You know, it's like you talk to certain people and they say, "Oh yeah, in this community it's meth. It's in this community it's opiates. In this community it's heroin. In this community it's this." You know, so that means everybody's touched. And here's another thing: every 19 minutes we're losing somebody. We're losing somebody to drugs and alcohol. Every 19 minutes. That's just crazy.
I like to see what goes back, if they could go back and retroactively apply those kind of statistics. I think it probably been higher. Like when I grew up, everybody smoked, drank, and a lot of them did drugs. I mean, you know, prescription pills, you know, the illegal substances found on the streets, and I think the numbers were higher. I think there's been some ground gained, for example, in smoking, anti-smoking, through legislation to partially, but also basically there's a social stigma attached to it now. You know, people don't like to see you smoking in public. You know, you don't see it. Whereas when I was growing up, you saw it all the time. You know, I mean, I was sitting in a classroom over at Mott, for example, Mott Community College, back in the early 80s, and people would sit there and smoke beside you, you know, right in the classroom. So, I mean, there are some of the things that basically the social stigma and the expectation from the society on the smokers actually seem to be effective. So, I mean, there is some value to legislation, however, but I think that basically the acceptance of alcohol is basically something we'd have to just, you know, alcoholics, we kind of have like this kind of we all joke and think about the funny drunks we knew growing up. You know, when you're actually looking at the fact that behind that person's got a family, he or she's disappointing, probably might be abusive too. I mean, we kind of laugh all that stuff off, and I've done it. I mean, I know a lot of nice, funny drunks, but you know, it's like basically we got to have. There's got to be some kind of there's got to be some kind of potential for scorn for doing something. That's what we kind of removed for a lot of people. I mean, there's a total difference between total judgment, but a little bit of scorn. I mean, a little bit of scorn is a good thing. If somebody's going around spouting racist stuff in public, you know, they'd be pushed away. But if somebody does these kind of stuff, there's kind of like, at what point what kind of blend do you strike upon? You know, to actually have like a potential for expectations of people's behavior in public at least. And it just struck me. It's like, you know, I'm looking at the anti-smoking efforts, and it seems to bear some fruit. Largely because, let's face it, it's just it's not socially acceptable. But all this other stuff is done more in private. I mean, people can pop pills, walk on, be very social. So I mean, I don't know how that can be approached, but there seems to be some measure of success when it comes to like anti-smoking efforts. So I mean, and I think it's because of the expectation from society for you not to be a smoker.
Well, that's just it. The whole thing is, you know, with smoking cigarettes, I remember, you know, the cowboy from Marlboro or the camel man or whatever, you know, they made it so it was like cool to smoke, you know, when all these people knew, you know, the cigarette companies, they knew the dangers that fall behind it. But again, you know, the people that we have in place to protect us, our government, they weren't looking out for us. They weren't protecting us at all. They were just looking out for their pocketbook and getting money, till it got all blown up. Now we have to go after these drug companies or these cigarette companies because now they're getting a lot of heat from the people. And that's the only way in this country that we can get something done when we say enough is enough. We've had enough of your crap. We've had enough of your lies. We've had enough of you guys making this kind of money and you're killing us. We showed you last week the little thing about, sugar. 90% of what's in your grocery store is all, so filled with sugar. They say 1 out of 3 will end up with diabetes. And the whole thing is, in that documentary, they were saying that, these people are in there to make money. They don't care about you. They don't care how sick you get. And more than likely, these pharmaceutical companies, they're in cahoots right with them. Because you see, it's like I pat you on the back and I'm getting something in return. So yeah, let's go for it, Here's another thing that I came across. It says the pharmaceutical industry does not create cures. They create customers. Wow. It's about, when you go to the doctor, it's about getting taken care of. But here's the thing. Within 5 minutes of you talking to your doctor, telling him what's wrong with you, he's already writing you a prescription to cover the symptoms of what you're telling him. He hasn't a clue what's wrong with you.
Just 2 days ago, I was over at the doctor's office for my annual checkup, and I'm here for blood pressure, and I already got the prescription for the drugs, for that. And he's asked, well, are you in any pain? I went, no, I'm not here for an injury or something like that. I'm just here for a checkup. And it seems like, the thing is that we're actually, medicine has got an approach where the approach to medicine is to always make sure you alleviate pain. So basically, to restrict measures to reduce pain does seem kind of counterintuitive for a physician in many ways, because that's what they're taught. That's, the role that their doctor is supposed to be, alleviate suffering. So, you're kind of asking them to change focus, but you have to, okay, because there's too many things out there and too many people willing to take, advantage of that. There's too many people out there. Let's face it, they've been told how to get pain meds. A lot of people just walk out of with pain med prescriptions from their doctors just to get those filled and then go and sell them on the streets because it's quite lucrative out there for Vicodins and other Darvocets and all this other stuff. That's quite lucrative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know what? It seems like it doesn't matter what doctor you go to. Now they got these smiley faces. What's your pain tolerance? What kind of pain are you in today? 1 through 10. The whole thing is, I remember, growing up, there was no doctors really in our town, in our village, growing up in Lebanon. The only time a doctor would actually be brought in is if somebody was dead, to make sure. Because they didn't do embalming or whatever. They just usually, put him in a casket and they sent him off its way. But I remember, like, you got a headache? Here, boil this tea. You got something going on here, they took something and rub it together, put it on it. That's how we took care of, something that's just been handed from generation to generation of self-healing. Now we go to the doctor for one thing and we get medicine for that, and all of a sudden from the one medication we're on 5 different medications now, because from this medication now you got anxiety, now from the anxiety you have depression, from the depression you have this, so we're just countering the different symptoms or the different side effects. Here's something you don't hear every day, but I remember about 20 years ago, this one doctor I was talking to, he says 180,000 people die every year from side effects. He said even of things that you get over the counter. Side effects, 180,000 people die from just side effects to the right medication, even over the counter, something for your headache or stomach ache or whatever. I remember I got ulcers from being in a car accident, and I was given lots of Motrin, Vicodin, Xanax, you name it. I was like a pharmaceutical company. I 3 to 5 different kinds of medication. Um, I don't know. I think doctors get a kickback or something. I really don't get it. But from that, I ended up getting ulcers, and I was trying to get off of the Prilosec, and that's where I met this doctor, and it was for like a health drink, that was just it's self healing. It was a mangosteen fruit juice or something, and he took Pepsid AC, and he was talking about the different side effects, and he's talking about diarrhea or whatever. He says, well, I don't I can take the diarrhea or whatever, but the next one was death. He's like, I don't know about you, I can handle diarrhea, but death, I'm Pepsid AC. So these are just common side effects. What's what's in the norm? It seems like we go on these trends, and it's accepted by society. I'll just tell you that 80% 80% of heroin users, okay, they start off with prescription drugs, the opiates, the benzodine, all these different medications, okay. What ends up happening is once you become an addict, a lot of times a doctor will turn their back on you. You're an addict now. I'm not going to give you any more medication. So what happens is at that point you turn to the street, and the pain pill. I can't think what it's called, but the pain pill that's used for cancer, it goes for like $80 a pill. So what happens is, from instead of spending $80 that you don't have anymore, you'll find somebody that says, "Hey man, you can get heroin for $15, or $10." That's a big difference, and that's how you get hooked onto the heroin use. Look, nobody grows up that wants to be an addict or ever thinks of being an addict. But when you're sick, you do anything and everything to get what you need for your sickness. And not only are you sick that you need this medication, but it's like the worst flu that you ever had when you don't have it. It's you are willing to kill for it. That's how bad it is. And the side effects, or the coming down, or I can't think of what it's called, but the sickness is so bad that you will do anything to get your drug, and that's what we find. Okay. I think medicine, a lot of the medicine comes from herbs and different nutritions and stuff like that. And when they find that something works, they'll go ahead and they'll turn it into a medicine. And a lot of times the herbs or whatever they found of it, there's no longer anything of this herb in the medication. It's all synthetic, and it all has all these side effects. I'm not an advocate for marijuana, but marijuana has a lot of uses it's actually a lot better than a lot of drugs that's on the market, and you don't find anybody really killing people to get it. You don't see, I think, a lot of like the drunk drivers or stuff like that. But even though 65% of Michigan voted for this, there's still a big, these people that got their heads in the sand, and they want to say this is a type 2 drug, which is a crock of whatever, but the whole thing is, if we keep doing the same thing and our results are not getting better, then we need to make a change. And the whole thing is, I think the big thing is these drug companies, they don't want this to become, legal. So they're the biggest pushers, and they're pushing these people in your politicians, your sheriff departments, your police, all these people, to be against it because they're not making no money on it. See, you got to see the true facts.
That's unusual for somebody too, because you got community to compare and chasing the dragon, and yet that always struck me as like being different about you is that you're seeing the error of being like so vehemently anti-drugs, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, marijuana, like in a couple hours or next hour or so from now, we'll have a show about medical marijuana, and the reason why is medical marijuana. Okay, it does have people do smoke it to get high, but let's face it, it takes so much of that to have a negative effect. It'd be almost impossible for somebody to actually consume that on a daily basis. I don't know how they could. And if you basically looks at it, if all drugs are created the same, then they're not. That's simply a fallacious way to go with that argument. So I mean, I always thought that would surprise me. You were always basically more level-headed than the anti-drug people that I've talked to in the past. They were like one-size-fits-all approach, kill everything with an axe, and that's what always surprised me is you actually got more of I think a distance and actually rational approach to stuff than some of the other anti-drug speakers I've seen out there.
To be honest with you, John, I think we need to educate, especially our young, because our brains are growing. They're progressing until the age of 25, and I don't care what drug you use or alcohol or whatever, it stunts that growth. A lot of people that you find that did use marijuana, let's say, or alcohol at an early age, you will see that their IQ or their level of learning, or they act kind of stupid because their progression of their brain didn't go anywhere. It stopped right there. So the whole thing is we can't live in a box. I've chose to go this route. I feel like God had sent me on this mission. So I've been educating myself, and I've changed a lot of the ways I see things because of education, of seeing things. You can't live in a box and not look to the left or right. Sometimes you have to go all the way around and see things for what they are. So that's where we're at. All right. Well, thank you for saying that, John.
But I was very prohibitionistic too towards drugs. I mean, basically, I thought, if you knew it's illegal, you got pot for it, you did the crime, you do your time because you did the crime. So I mean, that's what I did for all my life till about 10 years ago, and I started looking at it. I got more in the libertarian camp, and I started seeing, well, drugs are bad though. We should keep real draconian laws against them because they're bad. And I started dealing with more people who had gone through addiction, and I said, well, we have all these drugs, these laws in place, like anti-gun laws. We got all these, there's some places totally ban guns, but there's still people being butchered with them. So I mean, okay, they're against the law. Well, what the hell does that really mean? I mean, it basically, if you get stopped by a cop, and if they check you and they find a weapon on you, then they can send you to prison for if. And the only solution would be to have a cop searching everybody as they pass by a certain particular spot, patting you down, asking you questions where to go to. Yeah, you'd be a safe world, but it'd be really freaking inconvenient. It'd be very intrusive, and I think everybody resent it.
Exactly.
And I've had people who are black leaders in the city actually call for martial law. They think police are abusive to blacks, and but they still want to deal with crime, so they want to call for martial law. It's like, if you think the police are going to be abusive, the military is going to be much more abusive because they throw away the citizens' rule book. Okay, you're basically a subject now. They get to do searches on you. They don't have to. They can detain you without worried about presenting your body, your habeas corpus or whatever. They can do this. That's what it means. Martial law means wartime law. Martial, MARTIAL, means martial during the war. So I mean, what's the approach we're going to use? I mean, there's got to be a reason. And the thing is, if you just look at the policy, and morality aside, I mean, I was always thought being a drug addict was immoral. You're destroying the temple of God, temple of the Lord, that which is your body, and you shouldn't do it. But then again, you saw the same people saying that from the pulpit would be 300 pounds and had high blood pressure and eat a can of lard a week, in their diet. So I mean, that's also a sin. So I mean, the self-righteousness doesn't seem to be. If you take it on your own self to be moral and you apply that kind of standard to yourself, knock yourself out. I mean, that's
Yep.
good. But you can't, society, you can't do that on. So all these things going on in my head, and what are we going to do about the drug problem? And I always thought the approach, the idea of treatment, it sounded like a soft sell, I mean, limp wristed kind of thing, to me. But then again, as you've seen it with your daughter, if she went through more of a treatment mode instead of like, accusatory or this is all on you and all this stuff, then maybe it would have been better off for her. She wouldn't have ended up dead on this stuff, And I don't understand the appeal to drugs. Never understood that.
Yeah.
Never understood that. I never understood why somebody want to get so messed up. They're throwing up. I mean, I've talked to heroin addicts, and you get constipated. That's got to be a horrible pain.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
At some point, you also like become filthy because you're not interested in personal hygiene.
Exactly.
You also can lose your teeth because then you're setting your body up if you're especially using dirty needles. I know a guy who sucked on a fentanyl patch, took that spit that he had in his mouth, drew that into a syringe, and injected himself in his own arm with this mixture of fentanyl and saliva. And there was an infection in his own mouth. Everybody does have bacteria in there. And he almost lost his arm over that. Then I saw the movie Requiem of a Dream. You ever seen that movie?
Mm-mm. No.
It might be really hard for you to watch that, but some guy did that. He shot himself with a dirty needle, and he had his arm amputated while he was in prison because the abscess grew and it took over. They had to cut it off to save the body, save his life.
Sure.
So I mean, that was startling. And I asked the person who was gone through addiction. She had seen people go through some very similar experiences in her own. So I never understood that. The whole thing about.
Well,
drugs.
Oprah, she had a special after that one actor died, and she had this comedian on there that he struggled with addiction, and what his way, his best way to put it, he says, as an addict, you feel inept, and the drug just gives you that you feel like you're complete, and that's really, I guess, the best way to describe it. For me and you, we don't see what is in it. I don't understand why you would take something that just nods you out. Where's the high in that? How does that make you feel good? You can't even keep your head up.
Yeah, it's like because you could be a legend in your own mind. Maybe maybe everybody who drinks. A lot of people who drink. Oh yeah, I needed to seem social. Well, they think like they're being engaging and witty and charming.
Yeah.
I mean, if you actually turn out for everybody else's perspective,
they're an asshole.
They're assholes.
Exactly.
They're slobbering assholes.
Exactly.
I just, but I never understood the drug. I never understood that. But then, like I said, everybody has their own issues, and some people are so overwhelmed by the idea of being insecure and now, if I had to let that bother me as much as it seems to bother other people, I was a fat kid growing up. I got attacked by everybody.
Yeah.
Got made fun of by classroom, by teachers. So I don't really love teachers. I pretty much have dismissive of any authority figure. But, I just never thought it was like, oh, I'm a total piece of crap in your eyes, so what I'm going to do is now make myself a piece of crap in my own eyes. Screw you.
Yeah,
you had to kind of
exactly.
develop a thick skin, and that's hard for some people to do because it is engaging in some maybe certain kind of, not engaging yourself, all of your brain, and actually looking at yourself because others might see you. You basically got to be that drunk out there without being drunk. You got to be seeing yourself out there as, doing better. You basically got to create this mythos about yourself that's going to be seen through by everybody else, but you got to live in that kind of fantasy world to get through without the drugs. So, either way of approach to life is actually calling upon you, be disingenuous for yourself. So, yeah.
It's crazy. You'll have a hard day at work, and it's like, oh, man, I'm going to go have a drink, And that's normal. It's like, yeah, let me join you, But the whole thing is, it's like we are not meant to feel, whether it's tiredness or pain or whatever. We just want to cover it up and go on that way. I just found that after Brianna, with my struggles of depression and everything else, I just felt like God is pushing me this way. And the whole thing is, I can't do it by myself. I'm counting on you guys' help, people joining me in this fight, because together we can make a difference. We can make this world a better place than we left it, or when we leave it, So I'm counting on your help. I'm counting on you listeners to join me, to join me. I would love you to call and let me know what your thoughts are. Do you agree, disagree, whatever? We can have a debate, and that's the whole thing. This is America. It's about having speaking our minds, and it shouldn't, just because you disagree with me, it shouldn't be a fight. That's what makes America great. I love this country. I love the people. Okay, but let's wake up. Let's wake up and make this world a better place. We got 1 minute left. All right, we got 1 minute left. So, once I started this cause, it seemed like I eat, sleep, and shit this thing, okay? And the whole thing is, I want you to become more involved. I want you to get a hold of your school districts. I want you to get a hold of your superintendents, your principals, and say, hey, we need Chasing the Dragon to come in there, because this is a good message for our children. We need this in every community, My name is Sam Jahari. I'm coming to you from Community Parent, and please join me. Thanks very much for joining me today. Have a great day.